Cornell University chemistry professor Dave Collum is back because the rankings for the worst colleges for free speech, it's in. Harvard and Columbia rank as worst. So does several other Ivy League universities. And I think I just want to start there because you are a professor at an Ivy League university, which did not make it to the bottom of the list or the top, depending on your view of whether speech should be reined in and how dangerous it is. But this comes from Zero Hedge. This is the article. They're quoting this group. Well, let me scroll all the way up so I make sure I get the name.
We're close.
We're close. Here we go. All right, FIRE. Right. It's the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, and they have their 2025 college free speech rankings. You can go to thefire.org and check it out for yourself. But a lot of the worst colleges for speech were these very expensive private Ivy League hoity-toity universities. Does that surprise you?
No.
Why?
Because I think we're loaded with. I think we're very loaded with way left of center faculty, which doesn't make them bad people, but it makes them very prone to not supporting free speech. They think that ideas that they don't agree with should be muzzled. It's becoming an acute problem. I'm not sure Cornell's such a bad place. I mean, I keep reading about Cornell being a bad place, but I really don't see it. I have trouble identifying it. I get emails. I'm in a group. I'm in the FIRE group here just because, I got canceled years ago and stuff like that. But they're kind of hyperbolic, and I don't sign off on it. I know the current president well, and I think he's a totally decent guy, and I think he's trying to get it right. And I think running a university is almost impossible at this stage. And so as a consequence, there's no winning strategy. Okay, so, Israel, Gaza, right? What are you going to say on the Israeli-Gaza conflict that's not going to get half the campus pissed off? Now, right now, it turns out that the pro-Palestine. So when the Israel-Gaza thing occurred, I've got a gag order on that one, but I talk about it in the abstract, but not in the moral side. And when it occurred, October 7th, on the 9th, I had class, and I said, as many of you may have realized, although maybe you haven't yet, the world has changed. And I said, what I'm going to tell you is that there's probably people in this room who are on both sides of the story. And I'm sure that it's quite personal to people in this room on both sides of the story. And I said, what I want to tell you is be kind to each other. That was my only statement on Israel-Gaza. And that turned out not to work so well. I think right now, if you were to compare Israel-Gaza to, say, Trump versus Kamala, I think what you would find is that walking through the campus with a pro-Israel or MAGA hat would be more likely to get you punched than walking through the campus with a pro-Kamala, pro-Palestine hat. So there is that bias on the campus, yes. I don't think university officials know what to do with students who are problematic. I got to recommend a book. Jonathan Turley's The Indispensable Right, to me, is a brilliant, brilliant treatise on free speech. It's scholarly and it's riveting. And so if everyone in the country read it, I think it would change national politics overnight. I really think it's that important a book. And he talks about the battle for free speech and why it arises and decisions that were made that were staggering, where some guy bitches about the government, the guy's dead right, they still throw him in jail, and the Supreme Court upholds the decision, right? What were they thinking? So he says that free speech starts to disappear, and you get anti-sedition laws when things get risky, when things get gnarly. And so obviously we're in a risky, gnarly period. Now, when you see him get interviewed, he talks so the good news of his book is we've been here many, many times. The most prominent was World War I, where they were throwing people in jail for opposing the war. So you say, well, okay, so it's cyclical. So the shit we're watching now is going to go away at some point, and we'll go back to normal again. But as Turley travels the globe, hawking his book and doing interviews and stuff, he sounds like he doesn't believe that this one's necessarily going to cycle back. He's worried.
Okay, I will push you on the idea that information is going to change anyone's mind. So if all these
Oh, it won't.
people, well,
No,
it
it
won't.
won't.
So all these people could read this book and they'll still be in the mess that we're in. Because that is like one of the biggest takeaways I've had of doing these interviews over the last 3 to 4 years is that
Stubborn.
no amount of reckoning with the truth will change a person's mind if they're convinced of an illusion. I mean, there's no amount of information. But hang on. One thing that, well, it may not help your reasoning skills, but it will make Dave more interesting to you. And that is my wine club. Okay.
Which he needs the help.
Dave doesn't need you to be drunk to find him engaging. He's actually a very fascinating guest. Love having him on. And as you mentioned, Cornell can't be that bad because you're still employed there. And you've said some edgy stuff, Dave. So they've allowed you to stick around. I know you're tenured. We could talk about all that. I ask you pretty much every show how you still have your job. But anyway, go to AllisonWinePromo.com, sign up for the wine club. You'll get 6 amazing wines every 3 months. You're going to be in the club. We're all drinking the same wines at the same time. You're going to get to hear from the guy who goes all over to these very remote places to find these wines. They're all very small batch wines. You can't get them at like Wine Co. or your grocery store. And why would you want to? Because this way you can support the show. They are handcrafted. In a lot of cases, the grapes are picked by hand. They come from sometimes between 6,000 and 9,000 feet. I'm telling you, the guy who has the job to find these wines, he in a lot of cases risks his life in some of this terrain to get to these vineyards. They come with amazing stories and in a lot of ways are still processed the way that their families have been making wine for hundreds of years. So go to AllisonWinePromo.com if you're into wine. You cannot get a better value. These are the most amazing wines out there. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. AllisonWinePromo.com. Okay, so Dave, real fast, let's
Now,
go.
I have a promo. I can't name them yet, but I get swag all the time. You're welcome to send me a bottle of wine if you want. But I just got a major chunk of a grass-fed cow from Montana sent to me on dry ice. Big, huge quantity. I even know the cow's name for free. I get swag all the time.
Well, because send that my way. Hello.
Yeah, people are so pleased. So a funny story. I got a call from my brother-in-law who's a trustee. And he read a tweet to me that I had written. And I basically said, look, Cornell's doing fine. Our president, he was vice president, he was provost at the time. Our president's okay. That was faint praise. Our provost is a rock star. I said it's a utopian existence. What we have to do is get the hell out of the news cycle. And then everything will be fine. And my brother-in-law, who's a trustee, named, wait for it, Ezra Cornell, reads me part of the tweet. I said, Ezra, how did you see that? And he said, it got sent to me by my boss. I said, Daphne, how'd she see it? And he said, no, my other boss. I go, you don't have a boss. He said, the chairman of the board of trustees sent it to me. And the chairman of the board of trustees says to my brother-in-law, Ezra Cornell, who knows everybody you can imagine, right? Do you know this guy? My brother-in-law says, yeah, that's my brother-in-law. That's how they laughed the rest of it. But he said, there's hope. I get a lot of stuff from people, and I get a lot of positive feedback because people see me say, look, everything's fine, and I'm right-wing, and I like the place. They say there's hope. And if you were a World War II vet and you showed up at Cornell in 1969, it would look way worse than anything you find now. It would look way worse. And so that's what campuses do. They lose their shit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, all right. Let's take a look real fast at this particular pattern I picked up on in the 2025 college free speech rankings. They list the University of Virginia as the top ranked school for free speech, which I do kind of question because I had this doctor on the show who he publicly denounced, and actually he disenrolled himself as a graduate of the University of Virginia Medical School because of their censorship and their practices during COVID. But anyway, let's just put that off the table. But they're saying University of Virginia is the top ranked school for free speech. Michigan Technology University, Florida State University, Eastern Kentucky University, and Georgia Tech round out the top 5. And Harvard is the year's bottom ranked school for free speech for the second year in a row. Joining it in the bottom 3 are Columbia University and New York University. All 3 of these schools have an abysmal speech climate. The University of Pennsylvania and Bernard College round out the bottom 5, and each has a very poor speech climate. What I notice immediately there is public versus private. And I don't know what to make of this, like very expensive schools versus, you get in-state people who may not be able to afford $60,000. I don't know. What is Cornell nowadays per year? What are students paying?
Probably $75,000.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, yeah.
Very few
So
people end up paying the full 75.
what do you make of that? Is
That
that something I'm just making up on my own, or do you think there's something to it that
No, but there's another pattern in that data. Maybe I'm not quite sure about some of those other schools. First of all, Barnard is Columbia. If you really want to get down to it, it's independent, but it's not. They're tied together at the hip. Second of all, what you may notice is those are city-based schools versus possibly not big city-based schools. So I
that's
think
a good point. Yeah.
the city, one of the problems that Columbia has is the city, New York City is a standing army of protesters. And
Hmm.
so when Columbia has a protest, people come from the boroughs. At Cornell, what are we going to get? A bunch of farmers with pitchforks coming in? I mean, that's about it. So Cornell is the People's Republic of Ithaca. It's as liberal as hell can be. You go 50 feet out of the city limits and you run into rednecks with no teeth, who I, by the way, identify with. I talk to our janitors. I talk to the workmen. I talk about and I joke about, you got to root for Kamala, right? Just to get their goats. And I identify with the rednecks in their bright orange shirts doing pipe fitting more than I do with my colleagues. But my colleagues are very decent people. Chemistry is still meritocracy at Cornell. We do not make appointments because some chick is a chick. We do not make appointments because some person can check a box. We make appointments based on merit. Now, if she is good, and she is a she, we win. But to the best of my knowledge, and I would be screaming, we have not made an appointment because we thought that we needed to check a box.
A good amount of the reporting about this survey relates to students discussing censorship, how they feel about it, and can they be comfortable speaking up? As a lot of this
No.
survey was done, asking students about the climate and then adding up their responses and then coming up with these rankings. The student concerns about self-censorship apparently have declined. This year, 17% of students said they feel like they cannot express their opinion on a subject at least a couple times a week because of how students, a professor, or the administration respond. Last year, this was 20%, and in 2022, it was 22%. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that's in part the problem. So I think if you're in a peer group and your peer group's a bunch of lefties, you can't speak up. Again, unrelated but related, my brother and his wife had good friends. I used to go visit them. They'd come back. They were really long-term good friends. And then their friends found out they didn't vaccinate and they disowned them. And then about 4 years later, my brother's wife reached out to him and said, it's been 4 years. Why don't we try to rekindle this friendship? And she said, we can't hang out with Trump supporters. So it's just screwed up. If I couldn't hang out with Kamala or Biden supporters, I'd have no friends. Because they're all my friends who are pro-Trump are on the internet. Those are my friends who are pro-Trump.
Right. Yeah, it's a very odd phenomenon, but it's very prominent. I probably should have had you back on for another show I want to do about how everyone's unfriending each other again as Trump is, back in the race. And so the whole 2016 unfriend me, if you voted for Trump, you put my children's lives in danger and you're harming the planet, all this stuff. I saw it in the newsrooms in 2016 because journalists had no concerns whatsoever about posting that, which I thought was crazy. Like, wait a second, I thought we weren't allowed to say this stuff. But anyway, I think it's so silly when I see people, like, it makes me want to say, if you're breaking up with friends on Facebook, I don't think they're your friends. I mean, I know it might sound
not at all.
crazy, but if they're probably, you don't have friends, or at least these people you're talking about are not your friends. So, because anyway, all right. Hey, if you want to,
my wife has had friends who I think have sort of distanced themselves from her because she's married to me. I think she's had that experience.
That's because you probably smell or something.
Could be. The blue jeans for 8 straight. I did a Twitter poll. I said, how often do you wash your blue jeans? Once a day, once every 5 days, every 2 weeks. And then the fourth choice was who washes blue jeans, right? And it's stunning how little people wash their blue jeans. So in any case, I have no trouble with someone who hates Trump. It just doesn't shock me at all. I mean, there's a certain Golem-like quality about him, right? And so I think he's improved too. But I think he you should be acclimating to him at some level, even if you hated him badly before. The problem I have is someone who can't see that their candidate sucks also.
Yeah.
Kamala, to me, strikes me as an absolutely ruthless, compass-free, no guardrails kind of a person. I don't think she's as bad as Biden was. I think she may be stupid or she may be dumb. I have a friend who knows her and says she's stupid, but she could be just playing a role, as Eric Weinstein says, kayfabe. It's professional wrestling.
All right. If you want to ask Dave a question or any other future interview guest a question, go to altomorrow.locals.com. Join my editorial board. It's $5 a month, and you get to go one-on-one with some of the most censored people on the internet. It's a great value, I think. You can send me questions in the mail too, or just send me a note of encouragement. Send me some seeds. I get seeds from people. I get artwork. I get very generous donations. So send me some mail. P.O. Box 3355, Denellen, Florida, 34432. Someone asked if it's safe to send cash, and I forgot the caveat. Somebody said tip, put it in tinfoil. So if you're going to send cash, put it in tinfoil. Somebody steals mail. Okay. Over on Locals, ST Mitchell asked, does Dr. Collum recommend removing university staff whose policies restrict speech? If so, what is the best approach?
I don't know. I don't know if Cornell has policies that restrict speech.
But what's your personal opinion? Do you think if a professor, basically they're saying, do you recommend if there is a university staff whose policies restrict speech, should that professor be removed from their job? And if so, what is the best approach? Or if not, what is the best approach? What do you do with a professor who doesn't allow, certain opinions to be voiced in their classroom?
I went to a symposium on free speech in the classroom, and it was organized by the president, who was a no-show, but my friend, the provost, who's now president, was there. And what I discovered was, first of all, there was very few scientists. I was the only chemist. There's very few scientists. They're just doing their thing. What I discovered is that the humanists, which were there in big numbers, are terrified of their students. We're talking one-legged lesbian, Rainbow City person who is terrified of saying the wrong thing in their classroom.
Yeah, I can see that.
And so here's what's going on. So I walk ever so slightly on eggshells in my classroom. It actually doesn't curb me from telling stories I probably shouldn't tell. But I also deal with it by saying, look, come and chat with me. I'm happy to talk to you. If you disagree with something, have a ball. I promise you can't offend me. So I encourage them to come and challenge me and stuff like that. I'm training chemists who might get a little testy with me. They have students who are training to be activists in their mind. So they are dealing with a whole nother kind of. When you're teaching a gender studies course, you are walking on razor blades.
Final sponsor read, greenpasture.org. Go get your cod liver butter oil blend for all of your health needs. High vitamin D, among other things, omegas, really good for your brain, really good for your teeth. Actually, I started taking this over 10 years ago to heal my cavities naturally. It does wonders for somebody with, bad teeth. Greenpasture.org, use promo code Allison with 1L at checkout. This is how you get it. Okay. They've got a bunch of great products here, but this is what I take: the fermented cod liver oil and concentrated butter oil blend. It comes in a couple different flavors and capsules. If you don't like the idea of a cinnamon flavored fish, some people don't. We take it with no problem. My kids do too. Fermented cod liver oil. See it right here. And then you can choose an option. There's chocolate, cinnamon, and unflavored. Except for it's not showing you how I'm choosing right now. But anyway, there's the cinnamon tingle is the one I take. Okay. So go get your greenpasture.org, great company. And it's really an amazing product. I take about a tablespoon every day.